Hello, welcome to How to Succeed During a Pandemic. Hi, I'm your host, Wendy Lally, and I'm delighted that you could join us today. The premise of the show is a very simple one. We talk to some interesting entrepreneurs and professionals about how they're managing to get through their business life and their personal life during this difficult time that I call the era of COVID-19. The pandemic is really challenging all of us, but some people are managing to not only survive but thrive during this time, and we thought that it would make a really good show if they were to share that information of how they're doing it with the rest of us. So here we are. My business is I'm a copywriter. I'm a marketing strategist. And in the course of my business, I interview clients and help them communicate what they do to the rest of the world. And so this show is kind of part of my own personal business. Our guests today are Michael Latone and Tamara Ortegel. They are entrepreneurs in totally different fields, and yet both of them are using podcasts to promote their businesses and the other things that they do. So I thought it would be really, and of course this is a podcast as well, and what I wanted to do was to get the three of us together talking about, first of all, how much fun it is to do podcasts and how useful they are for businesses, because you might want to try this yourself. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, Mike has a number of different hats that he wears. He is an editor, a producer, an actor, a director of short films, has a radio show, old time radio shows, and he also is a real estate person who works for the Keller Williams Success Realty Company. Mm-hmm. But what we're going to be talking about with him today, and I do want him to tell you all the details because honestly he is amazing, amazingly talented and in a number of different fields. But today specifically, I want him to talk about a podcast that he has with his mother, which is called Mike and Fran Unrehearsed. And he will tell you more details about that. Tamara is a certified health coach. She's an independent distributor of Healy and an advocate for Green Compass. And I want her to tell us all the details about that as well. But her podcast, in a way, is very similar to this one because it's a kind of feel-good, inspirational, here's how to take what the world throws at you and still come out on top. Kind of, am I describing it correctly?
Oh, that's good.
Moment, which I think we all can use, especially in this time. So I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let our guests speak for themselves. Mike, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Wendy. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, and I wish you all the success on 216 The Net because we're both, hosting programs on there and started about the same time. So COVID-19 basically has been very good to me. I just want to say that. And that's all I have to say about that, right? No, no, I have to explain why, because now people are going on more Zoom calls because they don't have to drive out to meetings. And I used to go to a network meeting called Cup of Joe a while ago. And I haven't been in a very long time. And because of the pandemic, I said, hey, I want to see what Cup of Joe's up to. I haven't seen these guys in a little while. And I started going again. And then a gentleman showed up named Peter Galt, who's partial owner at 216 The Net on Wakanda, real life internet radio program. And he happened to be running a contest for some new ideas for a show. This was back in May. Because he probably figured people are just bouncing off the walls with all ideas and they need to have some kind of creative outlet. And it was very true when he started talking about that, because I've always have ideas for shows and things, and I just needed an opportunity to be able to, make this actually happen. And so when I told him about my mom and the special relationship that we had, I used to record our conversations. I'd go to the pharmacist and I'd go, Mom, I'd hit the record button and then I'd call Mom. And she didn't even know that I was recording her. And it would be, Mom, I got the one prescription there, but, I don't know about the next time. We might have to find a new pharmacist because they got all new people there and they don't know what they're doing. She goes, well, you're supposed to get two. And I'm like, oh, I only got one. And I go, Mom, come on, work with me. I'm in line. She's talking to the other lady over there. Finally, I got this. And it was like $2. Now, at least it could have been like $20. It would have been worth my time. You know what I mean, Ma? And she's like, you're telling all me this? Why? Why are you telling me all this? I go, I don't know, Ma, because you're it. It's just you and me, and it's like, do I really have to hear all this? I go, well, so next time around, I'll try not to call you about all the problems I'm having picking up your prescriptions. And, it's like silly little things like that. And I did a couple of these samples for Peter, and he's like, I love it. I love it. I love it. You guys get along. You kind of dig at each other. And I think we have a sort of a special relationship that I am more than happy to share with everybody else on our radio show, Mike and Fran, Unrehearsed. And that's kind of where it came from. And from there, I took some improv, I took some acting. I went to Second City and I started doing some acting on the side. And it's fun work when you get it. It's hard to make a living at that thing, like anyone else. There's a lot of talent in Chicago, but only a handful can actually make a really good living. And so I continue to do that for today. And I work on Friends Films. I'm in an actors group, Chicago Actors in Film Meetup group. I support the Chicago film industry with Midwest Independent Film Festivals. Now they've changed their name to something else, but I support all my friends. So nowadays, you see somebody that's in a role and you go, hey, good job, man. I really like it. I can't wait to see your film. They'll go, hey, Mike, it's a good thing that you called me because I need somebody to play a cop in my next film coming up next week. And that's kind of how we work now.
So networking works in show business. Of course, actually, I have a confession to make. Years ago, I was an actress, and I can tell you networking is actually how you get the most work.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Tamara, we met
Yeah.
through networking as well. Tamara was a member of my BNI group, which I've talked about before on the show. And I want to ask you, please tell us about what you do and how your podcast is helping you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here and share, with everybody. And I'm really excited that you paired me with Mike because I think his show is really cool too. I have fond memories of my grandmother who lived into her 90s. And so I so much love what you're doing, Mike. So kudos to you. But anyway, I am a health coach. About 10 years ago, 2 of my seemingly healthy kids were diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And I didn't know anything about Crohn's or autoimmunity. And so I poured myself into learning through webinars and books and talking with medical people and just wanting to know how could I support them because they were very young. And I ended up going to a health coaching program through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and got certified. And, ever since I've been working with clients to help them integrate more holistic modalities into their treatment. So I love complementary medicine. I think if you have to take a medication to support your wellness, that's great. But there's other things you can do to make sure through diet and exercise and lots of different ways to support the body. So my podcast actually came out of the pandemic as well. Initially I heard all the medical leaders talking about, stay at home and isolate and all these different things. And I guess, I appreciate that, but I also wasn't hearing anybody talk about how to stay well, whether you get the virus or you don't get the virus. There's a lot of things you can do to support your wellness. So, I wanted to be that voice in the world that said, eat more fruits and vegetables, get outside and walk in the woods, do spend time with people that you love. My son went to the parking lot and sat in his lawn chair and his friends sat in their lawn chair and they, we're 6 feet apart, but they still got to see each other. And at the time he was a high school senior. So this is a really critical time in his life. But, we encouraged him and supported him in still socializing in a healthy way. So I want to be that person that says, what are the things that you can do to support yourself so that you're not isolated and you can either prevent getting illnesses, or if you do get illnesses, there's things you can do to recover more quickly. So my podcast is called Stepping into Health, and it's about what are the steps that you're willing to take to move forward. And I know so many people who have recovered from different illnesses, ranging from, small viruses to very difficult cancers. And they, did treatments, but then they did things to support themselves. So I thought, gosh, they can tell their story. I could, of course, tell their story for them, but it's so much more powerful to hear from them. And so that's who I have on my podcast, is I interview people and talk about what's your journey been, what's the lessons that you've learned, how can other people benefit from hearing about this. And it can range from someone having a really hard, difficult health scare to maybe their business, maybe how are they supporting mental health, a host of lots of things, because wellness means something different to everyone. So it's a lot of fun to be able to bring this to the world, and I'm very grateful that I had this opportunity.
So many, the thing about podcasts that makes them so powerful is people really pay attention to them. And today, I'm a marketer. I've always made my living writing advertising, but people don't believe advertising anymore. So if you're trying to create business for your business, ads are not the way to go. They just don't have any credibility. Podcasts, on the other hand, like the kind of thing that you're doing, with someone talking about, I had this horrible illness and no one seemed to be able to do anything for me, and then I took this treatment or this vitamin, or I found that this exercise really worked for me. That resonates with people. They believe that. So this is a up and coming source of information for people that is very powerful. And the percentages, I looked this up, 54% of people listening to podcasts say they're inclined or much more likely to buy a brand that they hear through that podcast than they are through another source. So it's a terrific marketing tool aside from everything else. And I also like what you said about staying connected to people. I think that's just tremendously important. And that really, Mike, I think that's what you're doing too with your mom. I mean,
Right.
There's a reality to that. Right. Between the two of you, but you told me that people had commented that they liked your show because they wished that they had that kind of relationship with their mother or their grandmother, or that they miss having that.
Right. I mean, I think podcasts kind of got a boost with the pandemic and the COVID-19 because everybody's multitasking at home now, and they're doing so many things at once. And it's nice to just listen to something of interest to them in a streaming sort of audio format. And I think that's really picked up since maybe March or April, May or whatever. And that's kind of a good thing. But, the fact that I'm doing this podcast now with my mom is just sort of something that happened by accident. I've always wanted to do something with mom and get her on video or do a program or do something like that. And it just kind of happened. Because I met, Peter Galt with the radio channel. We're dedicated to doing a whole year. We might do 2 years with this video thing starting in January. So it sort of started the ball rolling. And now mom, I would never be able to talk to mom and go, hey, we're going to do a 30-minute video program and people are going to call in with questions for you. She's like, what, are you crazy? I'm not going to do that. I go, come on, mom, you used to sing. You're going to sing songs on there. I go, no, it's not me. I'm not going to do it. That's your thing, Michael. That's your thing.
Even if someone can have that kind of closeness that you have with your mom, with their parents, the fact that you have that you're modeling that kind of relationship, they can still have something like that with their children.
Absolutely.
And because we model our behavior with our children from what we've had with our parents, and some people aren't as fortunate as you are.
Yeah, and as I'm finding out from other people I talk to, you meet people. There's a group that meets that goes to a friends from high school that's still playing a band, and every holiday they play. And I see other people from high school there, and I hang out and we talk. And then you'll find out that the families are just so different. They're not like mine. I'm the one that's unusual, and I thought that mine was like more common sort of a thing. But It's really not. And I would be afraid to, like, take 10 people in a room about the same age and ask them, do you get along with your parents? What kind of relationship do you have? And I'd be shocked, you know, to hear the answers that a lot of them don't get along that well. And, it's just not a happy environment to be in. So
I wanted to know how do you guys script your shows in some way? Like this show, I have to confess, we are operating sort of on a script. It's a very loosey-goosey script. It's kind of more talking points, so everybody has an idea of what's coming next. But I'm just curious, Mike, do you have kind of worked out a plan with Fran before you begin? And the same thing
yeah.
with you, Tamara, because I know you have guests on. Do you kind of give them, here's what I'd like you to cover in 10 minutes, or how does it work?
Mine is, I do send people a list of questions that I drafted specifically for them to be prepared to answer. But I leave it a little bit open that, if our conversation goes a certain direction, I'm happy for it to do that and just follow that. You kind of be in the flow of what is coming up for that person that day.
Well,
Right.
as you can see, I believe in that philosophy too.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point? I mean, if it's totally scripted, it's not any fun. So,
No, no. So the way we do it is, we used to get questions that were actually emailed in from mom. They used to be coming in like 10, 12 every week. They kind of slowed down a little bit. So what we'll do is we'll think about topics that maybe we want to talk about, and then we'll come up with a question so that we can make it sound like it was something that somebody asked, you know. And that way it's like, hey, here's a really good question for you, mom. you know, right? And then we'll go over the answer of that question or what she's going to talk about, and she'll write a little notes on her, on her notebook there on what she's going to talk about, and then we'll sort of touch on it a little bit. And I go, okay, so if you talk about that, I can talk about this, and then I could ask another question, and we can get to the end of it. Let's say we're talking about the history of Thanksgiving, and where did that come from? Well, she has all the dates. She's a school teacher, and she's got all these things. And I'm gonna play, the guy that didn't know that much about the history. And so, well, what did they do? Were the Indians there? Because I thought they were there, and it looked like they were really happy to be there, but actually they weren't really happy to be there. Oh, really? Now, what was going on? They heard guns going off, and then they wound up hanging out, but it was always this little bit of a tension there. But what happens with mom is we just start talking about one thing, and then we remember about something else, and then we talk about that, and it relates, and then we get way far away from what we're talking about, and then we finally say, well, that about wraps that up.
Tamara, you've already given us a reason for your podcast that you wanted to communicate to people about how to stay healthy during this time and what they could do to help themselves. And do you feel that you've achieved your goal of the podcast, or has it changed, or what's the kind of the end game that you're intending?
Well, initially I was really focused just on health conversations, but my coaching practice is more than that. Because I have a human resources background, I love to talk to people about all the things that make them healthy, because we all know people who maybe eat impeccably, maybe they're at their ideal weight, but they're in poor relationships, or they hate their job, or they don't have time to exercise, and so they're still unhealthy. So I expanded my podcast to talk about more things. And, it's been remarkable because I interviewed somebody who was in banking, who was helping people with the PPE loans. I interviewed a holistic dentist who's just introducing the concept of how is that dentistry practice different than a regular one. I talked to a school teacher. What was it like to be, teaching during the pandemic last year? And then how was it different this year? And, how does he feel about things? And, what is he really doing with the kids this year? And, in some cases, it's not really teaching content. It's really helping them learn how to be resilient. And it just has gone in lots of different directions, I think, because my main passion is really interviewing people and learning about them and, letting them express who they are and what they have to offer.
You have just said so many magical things that I'm relating to in terms of this show, because we started out talking about business and the effect of COVID on business. And in the course of doing that, I realized that it's a much bigger topic than business. It's really how it affected your life. And what you said about resiliency, that's a major theme of this program, because I really think that's the only way any of us are going to get through this, is if we have the ability to kind of pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off and start all over again and just keep going. Would you guys, do you have any special advice for someone in business who's considering doing a podcast? Something that, a goal that they should set themselves, or be aware of the technical aspects of doing a podcast?
Well, I mean, mine's actually a radio show, and then I kind of turned it into sort of a podcast because I'm just rebroadcasting my radio shows on YouTube over some still photos of us, and so it's kind of cheating a little bit to make it a podcast. So there's really only the audio portion of the program that I want them to listen to. But what I would recommend to people is this: if you have an idea of any kind, just go out there and see what else is out there. Listen to some other podcasts, because it's always easier to like go to see a short film by somebody and say, I love the fact that he made this film, but I would have done this and I would have done that and I would have changed this and I would have got rid of that whole middle part and added some more character development on this guy or something like that. So it's easy, I think, to sort of come up with a modified concept of something that's already out there that maybe you can make a little bit better. That would be my recommendation, because there's a lot of podcasts out there.
Right.
See what's out there and see what your, specialty is going to be to make that podcast yours and own it. That's what I would recommend.
Well, I love what you did, Tamara, because your podcast does connect directly. Not that I don't like what you're doing, mine too, but like you said, it's kind of in a different category.
Right.
But what you do in your podcast is connected to your business. But in addition to that, you expanded the concept, which makes a lot of sense, because as I said in the beginning of the show, COVID is not just attacking us, not just affecting us in terms of physical health and how we conduct business. It's in every aspect of our life, and including our emotional health.
Yeah, I was really lucky, I think, because I have had a Facebook group called Stepping into Health for several years. So it is a place where I'm already, finding articles and bringing them to there and adding my own experience to that information. So this was definitely, kind of the next step for me. And I'm using a platform called Anchor FM, in case somebody wants to know how I started. I would say to people that it's okay to be okay with being an amateur, that they're not professional. We are people who are passionate. We are trying to, share some information and be supportive in the world right now, and that we're learning as we're going. And so Anchor, I'm sure there's other platforms, but Anchor is really great because I'm able to invite someone to join me through an app, and we record. It's called Record with Friends. And then after, I can go ahead and edit. It's definitely not perfect. It's a little clunky, and they don't have a lot of bells and whistles. I wish they had a little bit more now as I am learning, but I have to be grateful that, it's easy for me, and it's not perfect. But and then they pushed my podcast out to Spotify and Apple and all the different places. So I don't have to do that side of that. And I'm glad, because I'm not interested in doing that. So then I would have to hire someone to help.
Is there a cost involved with that, or is it just
completely free?
That's
Yeah.
great.
So I think, gosh, if people want to, if they have some information they want to get out there, to just go for it. And,
Well, the other thing you said, that you had a Facebook page, because I was going to ask you guys, I know both of you are big on social media and using that to communicate the fact that you are doing podcast or radio show, and where it's at, and that people can tune into it and hear it. So you were already set up even before you did the podcast, right?
Right.
Yeah. And Mike, you're like a maven in this. I mean, I guess you have how many listeners already? Like
I don't-
10,000?
Almost 10,000 listeners. Wow. But I think it was because we fit a sort of a niche in the Wednesday afternoon shows over at 216 The Net that we're sort of carrying the rest of the day through. And Peter was kind of funny. He goes, the first couple shows we got like 2,000, 3,000. Yeah, that's pretty good, but don't expect it to just go through the roof, because it'll waver and it'll bounce around, and you're doing fine, and don't worry about it. And then it shot up to like 8,000, and it was like, whatever the hell you're doing, just keep doing that. Because we went on social media, we just told all our friends and this and that, and I don't know. I mean, we're very happy with what we have, and we want to expand it, and get it out on Spotify and things like that. I've got to talk to him about doing those kind of things, because they have their own social media sites, and we have a dedicated Facebook page, and I have my own website now, mikeandfranradio.com, and all of our shows are there.
Yeah.
And other videos and things are there. So not everybody's going to be able to tune in at noon on Wednesdays. So, I have to have an alternate way for them to do that. And that's what the website's doing right now.
Right. We did a similar thing on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, which is How to Succeed in a Pandemic. And so all these shows are parked there after they run on 216thenet.com. We're on... Well, this show will be on at noon on Monday, noon to 12:30. So, if you miss us then, all you have to do is go to Facebook and look up How to Succeed During a Pandemic. So, yeah, isn't it wonderful? I mean, all these electronic gizmos, I'm so impressed with them, and how much we can do, and how much communication we can do with each other.
Well, we're probably going to go streaming live with the video program with Camelot Media Group and Simul TV, and this will be starting in January. So it'll be part of a sort of a current events, discussion thing. Mom and I talking about things going on, and maybe answer a couple questions, and then we'll take live questions, and then edit it and post it up there. So it'll be 25 minutes of a show, 5 minutes of advertising, and we'll be able to do IMDb credits too, because we're producing our own show, and that'll open it up the door for other people that want IMDb credits, and we'll be able to charge them.
What time are you going to be on again?
I'm not sure about the details of that program. We're sort of learning as we're going, and I'm taking baby steps to learn more about getting sponsorships and things like that. So I'm going to be starting to get the word out on it once I have some more dates set up.
I'm sure, guys, if you're interested in hearing Mike, and I'm sure you are, please just Google him. I'm sure once the show is set, you'll appear on, people will be able to find you that way.
Just go to mikeandfranradio.com. Everything is there.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to wrap this up now, because we've reached the end of our little half an hour, and I just want to thank you both for coming. It's been a very fun time for me. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. And I hope that people will tune into your podcast, your shows, to see and hear you again. And we'll, we always close with information on how to reach people that have been on the show. So you can check that out, everyone. And I hope you will. And if you can't figure it out, just Google. My favorite source of information. Put Mike's name in there, or put Tamara's name in there, and see what pops up, and I'm sure you'll be able to find them again. So with that, and you can find us, of course, on Facebook, on our Facebook page, and at 216thenet.com. Monday, I'm trying to be a good commercial person here. Monday, noon to 12:30. So please return again next week. We're going to have another interesting show for you, and again on people that are not only managing to get through this pandemic, but somehow make something special out of the experiences that they're having, and who will be sharing those experiences with you. In the meantime, stay in and stay well. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Well, thank you.